It was the evening of March 31st, 1922, and deep in the rural woods of Bavaria, Germany, about 70 kilometers north of Munich, something unspeakable happened at a small, isolated farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck. When the bodies were found days later, 6 people had been brutally murdered with a mattock, a tool meant for soil, not skulls. The victims were a strange and tragic family. Andreas Gruber, 63, a harsh and widely disliked patriarch. His wife, Kazelia, 72. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, 35. Victoria's 2 children, little Kazelia, just 7 years old, and Joseph, not even 3. And Maria Baumgartner, the maid, who had only started work that day. It was a killing so brutal, so personal, and so mystifying, it would go on to haunt Germany and true crime aficionados around the world for over a century. What makes this case even more chilling is what came before the slaughter. In the weeks leading up to the murders, eerie things began happening at Hinterkaifeck. The former maid, Crescence Regia, had quit 6 months earlier, telling friends she believed the house was haunted. She claimed she heard strange, unnatural sounds coming from the attic. She heard footsteps that no one could trace. Then one day, Andreas Gruber found a strange Munich daily on his porch. He didn't subscribe to it. Neither did anyone nearby. No explanation, just a silent message. Someone had been there. Just a few days before the killings, Andreas discovered fresh footprints in the snow. They led from the nearby woods straight to a door with a broken lock. But there were no tracks leading back. That very night, the family heard footsteps overhead. Andreas searched the attic with a lantern. Found nothing. He shared this information with his neighbors and friends, but declined any help from them to investigate or report it to the police. Now this wasn't a happy family. Years earlier, both Andreas and Victoria had been convicted for incest, a taboo crime even more shocking given their tight-knit rural community. Andreas served a year in prison. Victoria served a month. And then there was Joseph, Victoria's youngest child. Was he the result of rape? Of incest? Or was he fathered by Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor Victoria had turned to? He initially reported Andreas to the authorities, but later retracted his claim. Then adopted Joseph as his own. Even the land itself was tangled in drama. Transferred to Victoria and her long-dead husband, Carl Gabriel, who had supposedly died in World War I. But rumours would swirl for decades that he'd survived and returned. On March 31st, a new maid arrived, Maria Baumgartner, 44. Her sister had escorted her and left just before dusk. That sister may have been the last person to see the Grubers alive. What happened next is the stuff of horror. That evening, Victoria, her daughter Casilia, and her parents were lured one by one into the barn, perhaps by sounds, perhaps by instinct, and butchered with a mattock, their skulls shattered in the hay. Then the killer, or killers, entered the house. Baby Joseph was murdered in his crib. Maria was slain in her bed. All 6 were dead, and the killer stayed. For 3 days, someone lived at Hinterkaifeck with the corpses. They ate the family's food, fed the livestock, and even used the fireplace. Smoke. It wasn't until April the 4th that neighbours, alerted by silence, unanswered doors, and a missing family, investigated. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the same neighbour who had once accused Andreas of abuse, led the way with 2 others. In the barn, they made the grim discovery. 4 bodies stacked under hay. Inside the house, Maria and Joseph's corpses were found. One of the worst discoveries came from autopsies conducted right there in the barn. Young Casilia Gabriel had survived the initial blow and had torn her own hair out in terror as she lay dying beside her family. It was murder. It was rage. And it had no clear motive. The police from Munich arrived, but it was too late. Curious neighbours had contaminated the scene, stepping through blood, cooking meals in the kitchen, and moving bodies to look for valuables. The murder weapon, a bloodied mattock, wasn't found until weeks later, hidden in the barn's attic. Skulls were sent to Munich for forensic analysis. The corpses were buried without their heads. Despite over 100 suspects, countless interviews, and new theories, even as late as 1986, no one was ever arrested. In 1955, the case was closed. Was Lorenz Schlittenbauer the killer? He had strange knowledge of the crime scene. He moved bodies. He had motive. Jealousy, perhaps shame. Did Carl Gabriel, Victoria's supposedly dead husband, return to find her child was not his? Or was it someone living in the attic, watching, waiting, moving through the shadows until the moment was right? No fingerprints were found. No confessions were made. No closure was reached. The Hinterkaifeck murders have inspired books, films, podcasts, and conspiracy theories. Andrea Maria Schenkel's 2006 novel Tannered reimagined the crime. Amazon's Law explored it in chilling detail. And still, today, no answer has emerged. Only questions. Who killed the Gruber family? Why did they stay afterward? And is the true murderer still unknown? Just a whisper in the Bavarian woods. A ghost in the attic. Footsteps on the snow.